welcome to my January wrap-up. I'm going to give you short reviews for the 9 books that I read this month. It was a great start of the year. Chapters below if you want to skip around. I'm going to start with The Royal Game by Stefan Zweig. This is also called a chess story. There's kind of a lot of different translations. I don't know if this is a good translation or not. This is a self-published translation just based on kind of the quality of the printing as well as just the watermark at the end. This is kind of an Amazon special. So this is self-published. Modern translation is what it says. And I wonder that because this didn't really do much for me. The story in The Royal Game, or a chess story as it's also published, is about a train ride, and there's a world chess champion, and people discover that he's on the train, and they decide to challenge him to a game where all of them play as a group, and someone amongst their group emerges as maybe this chess champion's equal, or maybe even his superior at the game of chess. And we get into his backstory, and the backstory was highly interesting, and then we get to the end, and I kind of saw what the author, at least I think what he was trying to say about it, and I don't think he pulled it off. And again, I don't know if it was the translation or not, but this one kind of fell flat for me. Now, it's a quick read. I mean, it's a novella. In fact, someone on the Discord said the translation is not a chess story, it's a chess novella. I don't know how true that is, but anyway, The Royal Game was okay. I think it's hyped right now because chess is big, because there was a movie or something on Netflix with chess. But anyway, I digress. Royal Game, it was fine. I don't know if I can recommend it. I think if I read it again, I would probably choose like a Penguin translation or something that is more vetted and perhaps might be something that might enrich my enjoyment of this story, but as it is, this was just okay. Turning the Sky Round, an introduction to Wagner's Ring Cycle by M. Owen Lee, is a work of nonfiction, and this is a really concise background, introduction, however you want to describe it, for the opera cycle by Richard Wagner, The Ring of the Nibelung. There are 4 operas in that cycle. They are literally some of my favorite music compositions for probably about 30 years. I've just really loved that opera cycle. I love, primarily as an orchestral musician and conductor, my favorite kind of music is basically the German composers from Beethoven to Mahler, of course, including the Austrians in that. But so this is just a book about Wagner's Ring Cycle. And for me, the strength in this, because this is very good, the strength is in its brevity. Wagner's Ring, I mean, I can just look up and I can see so many volumes that I have about the Ring Cycle, whether it's an author just looking at the literary merit of the libretto or examining the various influences, the mythological influences, the philosopher influences, or even just examining kind of the musical leitmotifs, the leading motives that Wagner used in his music. You can write forever about Wagner, like his operas, which are all pretty long. I think the 4 opera cycle is about 13 hours, something like that. But I think this is very good because it's so short and concise, but it is really very focused. This was taken from the author doing intermission talks between acts of live broadcasts of the Metropolitan Opera. So because of that, he had only a finite number of words, and because of that, I think he was able to do just a really good job at just being very succinct in examining this huge work that has volumes upon volumes upon volumes of scholarship. So I really enjoyed this. The reason I reread this is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've read this volume. Anytime I go see one of these operas, I usually reread this again just to refresh everything in my memory. But the reason I reread this is for the next book, which has some basis in Wagner's Ring Cycle. But if you're ever interested in learning about these operas, this is probably the best introduction you can find for Wagner's Ring of the Nibelung. The Real Story, The Gap into Conflict by Stephen R. Donaldson. So this is the first book in the Gap cycle. This is a 5-book series. I'm currently buddy reading this with Jonathan from Words in Time. And I mentioned in the previous book that I was talking about on this wrap-up that I was reading this because one of the big reasons I was reading this is highly influenced by The Ring. In fact, there's 2 things that Donaldson talks about in the afterword and from other things that I'd read when I was just researching this buddy read, that the Ring Cycle really influenced him. And I'm really intrigued for that. For me, I want to talk more about it, and I don't want to belabor the point on this short reviews video. So I am going to shoot, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to shoot a dedicated review for this book. if anything, just to document my own thoughts and parallels that I'm seeing between this and the Ring cycle, because there's so much in there that can be done, and I'm really looking forward to where it goes. Anyway, as for this book is brutal. If you are sensitive to any kind of trigger warnings, you might want to research, because this is ultra violent, this is very intense, this is brutal, and it wasn't easy to read a lot of times. There's kind of some brutality in the middle of this, and I got through it and said, oh, okay, we're good, and then it kind of continued. So it's kind of a brutal read. The book itself is good. I wouldn't call this a great start to a book series, but it did its job, because I do want to continue to see where this story is going because of the initial premise, because of the parallels to Wagner's Ring cycle, as well as just I've heard some great praise that at the very end of this book, a lot of like the brutal things that happen in this first book pay off at the end of the series. So I am anxious to see if that happens. Donaldson was an author that I really wanted to explore this year, and this is where I started. So not my favorite book of the month or anything like that, but again, I do look forward to reading the second book of the Gap cycle next month. So another work of science fiction I read this month is The Mountain and the Sea by Ray Nayler. I've had this one for a while. A friend gifted this to me. And this is one of those science fiction books that are just about great ideas and execute the great ideas extremely well. This book is primarily about consciousness as well as communication. In this book, you can kind of see this artistic cover here. We discover a sentient species of octopus in the Pacific, and it's a near-future science fiction story, and it unfolds a lot like a First Contact story. Just like when you read a First Contact story, the aliens are very alien, and you really struggle to try to understand, and you struggle to communicate. All of that's in here, and the execution is extremely high. I was really, really impressed with that. It is near future, so there are some things that you see, like you see some kind of hackers in there. You see AI, but I think this was written a few years ago, so kind of less of the proliferation that we see of it now. But that's in there, and kind of the trajectory where that's going, perhaps in society. There's the world's only android is in here, and all of those things kind of examine consciousness and communication in kind of different angles, and I really like that. Now, that said, I thought some of the secondary storylines were a bit superfluous. I felt that they really didn't add as much to the story as much as they were in the book. Like, they added, but I felt they were maybe a little too present, because for me, the riveting story was about this doctor just trying to, her life's work trying to communicate with this sentient octopus. And I just found it was fascinating. Ray Nayler is definitely an author that I will read more of, because I thought, again, he took a central premise. I'm having trouble talking today. He took a central premise and just executed the hell out of it. So Mountain and the Sea, I could definitely recommend this if you're interested in kind of those themes in this work of near future science fiction. Up next was the first book I read this year, and that is Reaper's Gale by Steven Erikson. Another chunky book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is the 7th book as I make my way through this. And overall I enjoyed this, but this is my least favorite book of the 7. Now, if you've been following my Malazan journey, I've been doing reading vlogs, and I will have a reading vlog. It's going to be out next week. So I did film it before, but just kept kicking it down the road for other videos. But I plan on releasing it next week, next Sunday. So you can see my spoiler thoughts on this book. As for spoiler-free thoughts on this, it's super slow. The first 500 pages were at times interminable. One of the things that I appreciate with Erikson is he's really good at giving you characters in small moments and making you connect with them. And you had a few in here. I mean, there's one in here that is just masterful characterization, a character I think you only see 3 times. And the 3rd time you see this character, you'll be in tears. But I think that's kind of few and far between here. Most of the newer characters in this story just felt really flat to me, and they didn't go anywhere. I didn't really connect with them. And just the pace of the plot was super, super slow. Like, there's a plot thread that starts in the 6th book the Bone Hunters. And I remember shooting my vlog and talking about it, saying, I can't wait for this to happen, even though I think it's probably going to be in the next book, but it very well could have been in the 6th book. No, it's in the 7th book. And you get to the point where a third of the way into this book, like, that conflict could happen, and it doesn't happen for 600 pages because he gives you like every minute of every day from like 15 different perspectives. So this was super, super slow. You didn't get that conflict that I wanted so much until the last chapter. Now, that said, slow start. The last 350 pages of this are ridiculously good. I've seen that's Erikson. It's kind of his MO, is he knows how to end a book. I mean, the ending of this is just remarkable. So strong. Brings all the things together. There's some gut punches in there. There's some anger in there. There's some anguish. There's some cheering out loud moments. There's some tragic moments. I mean, he runs the whole gamut, and he just converges his stories so well at the end. But for me, it didn't make up for the first half. So although I can still say I like this book, I think I gave it 3.5 stars, maybe 3 stars. It's my 7th favorite in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but I don't regret reading it. I look forward to reading Toll the Hounds. That's probably not going to happen until the summer just because of a busy first half of the year. But I did enjoy it. Didn't love the start. Loved the finish. All right, one that I mostly loved from start to finish was Red Sea Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the 2nd book in the Gentleman Bastard sequence. This is the Broken Binding edition, and I took off the dust jacket. I think it looks better without the dust jacket. At least it's more distinctive on the shelf. And that's something that, a little mini rant here for special editions, like, we don't see this on the shelf. So I find this less important than this. I think the spine is much more important. And with Broken Binding editions, sometimes the spine is so dull you can't even see what the title is. So anyway, I digress. The book is great. I think it's an equal to the first book. In fact, I think if you're a fan of nautical fantasy, this will be, for you, a better story than the first book. I don't like nautical settings. Just flat out don't like them. When they're done well, like here, like Robin Hobb's Mad Ship, Live Ship Traders series, yeah, I like it when that happens. But for me, like, I have no desire to read anything nautical. Like, someone gives me a book blurb and they say, oh, and it's a nautical setting, my ears turn off right away. Just, it's not my thing. I'm not into it. But what Lynch does really well in the nautical parts of this story is that he just gives you so much else that's going on, especially character work. And I think it was very, very well done here. Especially, I felt the relationship between Locke and John, which I thought was one of my favorites in fantasy in the first book, got even deeper here. And I really, really connected with those two characters just tremendously in this series. It makes them probably one of my favorite friendships I've read in literature. It's so strong. And I really enjoyed that part of it. I think the one thing, if there's one thing that I think didn't work in this book, the first book had a bunch of flashbacks, and they were flashbacks flashing back to Locke and John, kind of formative years, and it kind of informed their characters and how they got together, and it was really effective in that story. I felt the flashbacks here didn't really add much because you were flashing back like 6 months or a year, and it didn't really add much to the book. In fact, I thought it slowed down the narrative, especially in the first half. But overall, I really love the world building. Lynch's writing is self-assured, and it's very rich, and it's quite beautiful at times. And for me, the greatness is just the depiction of this friendship between these two characters. I think it's just so... It's done so well here, as well as I've seen anywhere. So I really enjoyed Red Seas Under Red Skies. I'll definitely be reading the 3rd book in the Gentleman Bastard sequence sometime later this year. So if I were to give a monthly award of biggest surprise of the month, it would definitely be Honored Enemy by Raymond E. Feist and William Fortschen. First of all, thank you, Jeff. One of my viewers sent me this whole series, and I'm so excited because this was a great surprise, but great book. My expectations were a little lower because I read a book by Fortschen in December, didn't love it. 1 second after, I thought it was just okay. But Feist just proves that he's really good at these collaborations. So, Honored Enemy, this is, first of all, the series is The Legend of the Rift War. And these were written later, like 20, 30 years after he wrote those books, but they're set during the Rift War. But it's basically 3 standalones. And in this standalone, you don't get any characters you know. You get some characters' name that you may know. But in this book, you get new characters, and you basically have a squad of Kingdom soldiers, because this is set during the Rift War, and you get a company of Serrani soldiers that they're kind of forced to team up to face a greater foe. And I kept expecting a lot of the cliches, and I mean, some of the tropes in a story like that have to be in there. You know, the distrust, the kind of fracturing of their own squad, because some of them see the big picture, and some of them do not want to team up with the enemy. So you kind of have those tropes. But what I really liked is that the book was still able to just hold so much tension all the way to the last chapter, because you didn't know, because you knew at some points, if they defeat the greater foe, then they have to come to terms with the fact, well, are we going to part amicably, or are we now going to fight? The people that we fought next to each other for weeks, or in the case of this story, months. And I thought the authors did a tremendous job at just keeping that tension there. Additionally, just also seeing kind of how you would see them start to trust each other, and then it would kind of go up and down. There was kind of an ebb and flow as far as that was concerned. And I just thought it felt very, very real. So this is really just a great work of military fantasy. And I thought it was superbly done. The book was great. Loved the ending. Hat tip to Mr. Feist and Fortschen for Honored Enemy. So I have 2 books of the month. I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but one was predictable, and I think it's not fair to the other books, because I reread one of my favorite books of all time, and that is A Song for Arbonne by Gavriel. I reread this via audio, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because the book, I've already done a full review on this, or a why you should read, or something like that. I don't know what I called it, but I'll put it up here. But the audiobook was fantastic. And if you saw my TBR video, the audiobook made me so excited for this book. I'm reading it again in February, but traditionally. The narrator, I don't remember his name. I'm going to put it down here. And actually, I can't pronounce his first name. So I'm just going to put his name here and keep it up here. Was tremendous. He was so talented. And in this book, A Song for Arbonne, there are songs and there are poems. And when it was songs, he sang them. And he had beautiful melodies. He had a great voice. And it really brought so much of the narrative to life. But this is one of my favorite books. I think it's written for me. There's so many aspects of this story that just feel like it's written for me. The inclusion of music, the importance of the arts, seeing characters grow, seeing characters learn. Cross-cultural learning is one of my favorite themes. The family dynamics in here are done so well. The political dynamics are done here so well. The action sequences, I mean, I struggle to find anything I don't love about this book. And listening to it via audio just brought back all the fond memories of this, because this was my second or third book by Kay, and in many ways is what cemented my love for this author. And I just loved the listening experience. So my co-book of the month is A Song for Arbonne by Gavriel. You can probably guess that maybe next month I'll have 2 books of the month as well, since I'm going to be reading this one again. So my other book of the month is 12 Months by Jim Butcher. And I will be honest, I did not think that Jim Butcher could write a book like this. This does not feel like a Dresden book in many ways, in a good way. The previous book in the series, I think the 17th book in the series, was Battleground. And in Battleground, we got just a huge battle. And there's a lot of fallout. And we didn't get a lot of that at the end of the book. And this book is the fallout. And this book is primarily about grief, because Harry's seen so much of his world destroyed. He's seen deaths to people that are close to him, some of the closest people to him, and he's grieving, and he's going through this grieving process. And Butcher just brought it to life in such a realistic and nuanced way that just really impressed me. We all know that the grieving process, as you're healing from the death of somebody close to you, it's not a linear progression. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, and you just hope that you do have that linear progression. And I thought that his depiction of that was just, it was so strong. I think it's obvious that the author has probably experienced some grief to somebody very close to him before, because I thought his depiction of just the things that Harry was going through and how he was dealing with this was incredible. This is easily his most literary novel. And I see any of the negative reviews, I think that the reviewer just didn't get it, to be honest, because I think that's what it was about, is this is a portrait of grief. This is a portrait of a man who's gone through so much and seen someone very close to him die, and he has to struggle to go on, and he has to find the reasons to go on. It's so good. And it has some... It's amazing. I mean, this is the 18th book. I always forget the numbers. I wish they'd put them on the... Well, I don't own the book, so I guess if it was on the spine, I wouldn't remember anyway. But I love that we're late in this series and Butcher's still introducing you to new characters that you love. There's a character here named Bear that is like a huge favorite of mine. And for me, one of the things I've always loved about this series so much are the quieter moments. And this is a book full of quieter moments. Just incredible work by Jim Butcher. I ask myself, did I just read my book of the year? I may have. So that was my January. I would love to talk with you about these books in the comment section below. Please label any spoilers for anybody that has not read these before. And I'd love to hear what your book of the month was in January. Let me know that as well. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter, Goodreads, and the Fireside Discord. I'd love to interact with you there. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.